Hi everyone, I am Stephanie Stewart and I am here to read two stories to you today. I'm going to read a book by Robert Munsch and then I'm going to read a story by Madonna. And so these are both two very different stories and I hope that you enjoy them. We are going to start with Mr. Peabody's Apples. And this story was written by Madonna and illustrated by Lauren Long. And it has some pretty incredible pictures in it and it teaches a pretty good lesson as well. So I hope you enjoy it. Mr. Peabody's Apples. In the town of Hapville, which wasn't a very big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his Little League team on a great game. They had not won, but no one really cared because they'd had such a good time playing. Mr. Peabody was the history teacher at the local elementary school, and in the summertime, he dedicated every Saturday to organizing baseball games with other schools. Billy Little, who wasn't a very big boy, was one of Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After each game, he would always stay to help pick up the bats and balls, and when they were finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy. Good job. See you next Saturday." Then he would start his walk home along the main street of Hapeville, which wasn't a very big street, waving hello to everyone he knew, and everyone would wave hello back. Along the way, he passed Mr. Funkadelli's fruit market. Here, Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Funkadelli's fresh apples. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom watched with curiosity as Mr. Peabody walked away with the apple. "That's strange," Tommy said to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay anyone for the apple." Tommy got on his skateboard and rushed to tell his friends. The following Saturday, Mr. Peabody's team played another game, and they lost as usual, but no one seemed to care because they'd had such a good time playing. Billy picked up the balls and bats, and Mr. Peabody set off on his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew, and they waved back. Once again, he stopped outside Mr. Funkadelli's fruit market, picked up the shiniest apple, dropped it in his bag, and continued on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends watched Mr. Peabody, and they were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody had not paid for his apple. They couldn't wait to tell all of their friends, who told all of their parents, who told all of their neighbors, who told all of their friends, and in the town of Hapeville, which wasn't a very big town. The Saturday after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everybody was. Then he saw Billy walking toward him with a sad look on his face. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. "What is it, Billy?" he asked again. Billy didn't look up. "Everybody thinks you're a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat and scratched his head. "Who says I'm a thief, Billy? And what did I steal?" he asked. "Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends said they saw you take an apple from Mr. Funkadelli's fruit market twice, and they said you didn't pay for them," answered Billy. Said Mr. Peabody, putting his hat back on his head. "Let's go and talk to Mr. Funkadelli about this, shall we?" And there you see the conversation between the two. Both look pretty disappointed in that picture. They walked down the main street, which wasn't a very big street, and Mr. Peabody waved to all the people he knew, but now some of them did not wave back, and some pretended they did not even see him. They finally arrived at Mr. Funkadelli's fruit market. Out popped Mr. Funkadelli, who said, "Hey, what are you doing here, Mr. Peabody? Why aren't you at the game?" "There wasn't a game today," said Mr. Peabody, "and I was wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" replied Mr. Funkadelli. "You pay for them every Saturday morning when you pick up your milk. You can take them anytime you like. You want the big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Mr. Peabody took his apple, smiled, and offered it to Billy. "I would like to take that apple, Mr. Peabody, but I have to go and find Tommy and explain everything," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house. I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. A little while later, Billy found Tommy and told him what had happened with the apples. He told Tommy that Mr. Peabody wanted to speak to him right away. So off Tommy ran, and when he arrived, he rang the doorbell, and Mr. Peabody came to the door. They looked at each other for a while. "Oh dear, Mr. Peabody," said Tommy on the doorstep. "I didn't understand. I should not have said what I said, but it looked like you hadn't paid for those apples." Mr. Peabody's eyebrows went up a little, and he felt a warm breeze blow across his face. It doesn't matter what it looked like. What matters is the truth. Tommy looked down at his shoes and said, "I am so sorry. What can I do to make things better now?" Mr. Peabody took a deep breath, looked up at a small cloud that was in the sky and said, "I'll tell you what, Tommy. Meet me at the baseball diamond in 1 hour and bring a pillow stuffed with feathers." "Okay," said Tommy, who then ran off to his house to get a pillow. An hour later, Tommy met Mr. Peabody on the pitcher's mound. "Hello, Tommy," said Mr. Peabody. "Follow me and bring your pillow." Tommy followed Mr. Peabody to the top of the bleachers, wondering what this was all about. "It's a windy day, isn't it?" said Mr. Peabody. They reached the top. Tommy nodded his head in agreement. "Here's a pair of scissors. Now cut the pillow in half and shake the feathers out." Tommy looked confused, but he did it anyway. He thought it was a small price to pay to gain Mr. Peabody's forgiveness. Then the wind carried the thousands of feathers far and wide. Tommy looked relieved and said, "Is that all I have to do to make things better?" "There's one more thing," said Mr. Peabody. "Now you must go pick up all the feathers." Tommy frowned. "I don't think it's possible to pick up all those feathers." Tommy replied, "It would be just as impossible to undo the damage that you have done by spreading the rumor that I am a thief," said Mr. Peabody. "Each feather represents a person in Hapeville." There was a long pause, and Tommy began to understand what Mr. Peabody was saying. Finally, he said, "I guess I have a lot of work ahead of me." Mr. Peabody smiled and said, "Indeed you do. Next time, don't be so quick to judge a person, and remember the power of your words." Then he handed Tommy the shiny red apple and made his way home. The end. So that story really sends a pretty strong message about judging people before you get to know them, because sometimes that can cause some damage. So the next story that I'm going to read to you is a very different kind of story, and it is by Robert Munch, and it is called "I Am So Embarrassed." And I'm curious to see as you listen if you've ever felt similar to the characters in this story. "Andrew," said his mom, "let's go to the mall. You need some new shoes." "No," said Andrew. "You always embarrass me when we go to the mall. You always say you are not going to embarrass me, and you always do. So, no, I'm not going to the mall." "I promise not to embarrass you," said his mom. "Ha," said Andrew, but he went anyways because he really needed to get new shoes. Just at the door to the mall, Andrew's mother said, "Oh, Andrew, you didn't comb your hair." So Andrew's mother spit on her hand and patted Andrew's hair till it was all flat. He is devastated at that. "Ah!" yelled Andrew. "Spit! Mommy spit on my hair at the mall. Very embarrassing." "Oh dear," said Andrew's mom. "I am sorry about the spit. I keep forgetting how big you are. Don't worry, I will be careful and I will not embarrass you again." "Ha," said Andrew. So Andrew and his mom went walking through the mall, and Andrew saw his aunt. "Please, please," said Andrew, "don't say hello to my kissy aunt." "Oh, Andrew," said his mom, "I have to say hello." So Andrew's mom said hello, and Andrew's aunt gave him a big hug, scrunch, and a large, wet kiss, slurp, that left lipstick all over his face. "Quack," yelled Andrew. "Lipstick and hugs, kisses, lipstick, hugs, and kisses at the mall. I think I'm going to die." Andrew hid up in a tree. Andrew's mom talked to his aunt for about 3 hours, and then she said, Andrew, where are you? Don't get lost. Why are you up in a tree? I am definitely going to get lost if I don't stop getting hugs and kisses, said Andrew. Hugs are nice, said his mom. Quack, said Andrew. He is pretty disgusted. They walked some more, and Andrew saw his teacher. Please, said Andrew, please, please, please do not let my mom say hi to my teacher. But his mom yelled, hello, Andrew's teacher. Andrew says you are his best teacher ever, and we are so happy that he got you for a teacher and would like you to see some of Andrew's baby pictures. Ah, yelled Andrew, baby pictures, ah. Andrew said, his mom, stand beside your teacher. I am going to take a picture. Andrew ran away. His mom found him and said, Andrew, why are you hiding behind a trash can? Baby pictures, said Andrew. You showed baby pictures to my teacher. Very embarrassing. You promised you were not going to embarrass me. Okay, said his mom. I will be very careful and I will not embarrass you anymore. I'm sorry. Taylor J from my school. There is Taylor J from my school. How about I stay with Taylor J and you go shop by yourself for a while? Good idea, said Andrew's mom. Taylor J, said Andrew, I am going nuts. My mom is embarrassing me all over the place. I am glad you are here, so my mom will leave me alone. Maybe you should not be so glad, said Taylor J, because here comes my mom. Taylor J's mom came up and said, Taylor J, do you want me to buy the pink underpants or the yellow underpants? Ah, yelled Taylor J. Underpants in a boy's face? Andrew and Taylor J ran across the mall and jumped into a trash can. How embarrassing. After a while, their moms came by and knocked on the trash can. Andrew, said his mom, why are you in the trash can? I am here because I am so embarrassed, said Andrew. Me too, said Taylor J. I don't believe it. Underpants in a boy's face. Now, said their moms, you're just too sensitive. You should not let things bother you so much. Okay, said Andrew and Taylor J. Then this won't bother you. They jumped out of the trash can, ran into the middle of the mall and yelled, our moms snore like grizzly bears and blame it on our dads. Both moms yelled, ah, and jumped into the trash can. Andrew and Taylor J knocked on the trash can and their moms yelled, how could you embarrass us so? Well, said Andrew and Taylor J, we had good teachers. The end.